There are a ton of political podcasts on the internet. A lot of them lean to the left. A lot of them lean to the right. So predictable. But not this one, shooting you straight between the eyes with the truth. This is the Middle Ground Podcast. From Murfreesboro, Tennessee, for Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and Rutherford County, this is the Middle Ground Podcast, and this is Answer Fancher.
All right, got a new toy there. Hello, everybody. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you've been like me and eaten a lot of food. I have gained, I don't know how many pounds, but a lot. And so anyway, this week will be a nice short show. I got to go see my mama up in Kentucky. I don't care what the governor of Kentucky has to say. I'm going to go see my mama. So anyway, as far as this week, we've seen I thought an interesting thing was how you're seeing every state respond differently to the COVID-19. And here in Tennessee, there aren't very many restrictions. So this is the land of the home of the brave and the land of the free for sure for right now. So let's see. So this week on this show, I'm going to show an interview. I got a chance to sit down with Scott Broden. I've got a friend who calls even the local media the fake news media. I'm not so sure that local news is fake news. I kind of agree with Chuck Todd on this instance, where he talked about how the breakdown of local news media has really hurt the U.S. far more than people realized it would, because most people are getting their news from Facebook. You're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope, but some type of social media, some new media. And traditionally, people would get their local news from the local newspaper. And so Scott and I talk about that a little bit, about how the D&J has changed through the years. And I hope you guys will enjoy it. I'm going to try to switch over and play that. And then when we come back, I've got a couple other things I want to share with you guys, but we'll get this going and hopefully it'll work. Maybe. How do you switch it? Like that. Look at this. So hey guys, there they go. This is Gabriel Fancher, and I'm here with my friend Scott Broden, who works for the D&J. He's a reporter there that covers local politics, Rutherford County, focusing most on Rutherford County. Is that how you'd explain your job, Scott?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I cover everything, though, right?
Government and school issues and business, economic development type issues.
Right. So a big umbrella of the things that you cover,
Yes.
How long have you been covering Rutherford County?
I got hired in fall of 1999 at the D&J. Initially, I focused on schools.
Okay.
And now I cover everything, like you said.
You've been basically on like a Survivor episode, right? Like with the changing of times in journalism, right? Like yes. You're the last man standing just about.
Almost, but yes, we have the newspaper industry all over the place has shrunk a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, I've seen coworkers have to go find something else to do. So yes, I have, right. We've shrunk a lot. That is true.
Yeah. When you started working there, how many employees were there? Any idea? Just roughly?
I think at one time, maybe 15 plus years ago, we had close to 160 employees.
Wow. That's amazing, right? I mean, like, to think of that, so.
And that doesn't, the newsroom might have been, I don't know, maybe 3 dozen people that worked the news and editorial side of it.
Right. Sure. Sure. And now, how many reporters do you guys have? Your newsroom.
Well, Nancy DeJaneiro and I, we're full-time reporters.
Okay.
And then we have two sports guys. Cecil Joyce covers high school sports full-time, and Joseph Spears covers MTSU sports full-time. Our boss, Milan Raglan, she sometimes writes stories.
True.
And then Helen Comer is our photographer, and that's your news and editorial team at the Daily News Journal.
And so, like, Rutherford County has grown tremendously in that time, and yet your guys' staff has just been, decimated in a sense.
We've shrunk. That is true.
So your productivity levels have to have gone through the roof, would be my guess. I bet you feel like you're working all the time.
I felt that when we were bigger.
Yes. Well,
now it's kind of like, all right, which meeting is the most important that most readers care about?
That's a very good point.
I might say, well, Murfreesboro is a big deal. They're about to vote on a tax increase. I got to cover Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
Or the county commission, they're going to vote on a tax increase. I got to cover the county commission. Or the school board, they're talking about, who should be the director of the schools, or, or his evaluation. So I got to cover that meeting.
Sure.
You go wherever the readers are going to be impacted the most and care about that story the most.
Okay. Is that just intuition on your part, or is there a way that you feel like, is it a scientific or is it intuition? How you decide what to cover?
A little bit of everything. I mean, sometimes I can look at a meeting agenda and know it looks like it will put people to sleep. And sometimes I can look at an agenda and like Costco, they're voting on giving Costco something.
I bet that gets the clicks.
2 point. Yeah, whatever readers want to read the most. And yeah, page views will give you a good hint people want to read it.
Sure.
But, like our city council, they voted to buy $2.4 million worth of land for Costco.
Right.
And then a year ago,
I covered that story in my podcast.
And a year ago, our Rutherford County Industrial Development Board offered Costco about $1 million property tax abatement agreement. So
right.
$3.4 million worth of tax incentives to bring Costco here. It does make me wonder what Sam's, and Walmart, what are they going to ask for?
Right. They should, right? Time to renegotiate. Yeah. So you covered, politics here and government for a long time, since '99. Who's like the most interesting person you've covered? I know that's a tough one, but
who's the most interesting person that I've covered?
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting people. Robert Arnold was an interesting person to cover.
I can imagine why. Sure.
Yeah, we had a sheriff get convicted and sent to prison.
That's right. Yeah, and and he's since moved back.
He's a very approachable guy. I've continued to, talk to him even when he was in prison. I communicated with him.
Sure. I've tried to get him to come on this show so I can talk with him.
On occasion, not a lot.
Sure. Hold on 1 second. My dog is barking. I'm going to have to deal with him. Hold on.
He'll probably go on your show. There you go.
All right. Sorry about that. My dog is not the very best of host as far as it goes when he hears any type of bump and he's barking. So we were talking about interesting people. You were talking about Robert Arnold. And
one of them. Ernest Burgess, he did a lot of things in his 12 years, and I covered a lot of that era of him being the mayor. I know he started it was under him that the county started a full-time fire department. Now we have over 50 full-time firefighters, and something I think you didn't agree with. What was it he did? the the Judicial Center. I think you were among the people that, why not do other things like night courts?
Sure. That's right. That's right. Yep.
And he got that $73 million Judicial Center built, which included a parking garage and which takes up the space of the old D&J building, and
that's
really
right.
improve the look of the old D&J property, but whatever.
Well, I felt that they could have probably put that somewhere else, and it might have been easier to get in and out of as well. Like you could put it anywhere in the county, and they chose some pretty high value real estate, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
Let's see here. What about, is there a story that you're most proud of?
I've done all kinds of stories. A decade ago, the D&J did a series of stories about the Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
And when the hospital opened, St. Thomas Rutherford Hospital, in those days they still called it Middle Tennessee Medical Center. But I remember writing a story kind of explaining the how it served as that hospital making the commitment kind of served as a catalyst. Because the city was trying to build something. They were trying to build a conference center, and they were trying to get headquarters to want to come here. And they were kind of like trying to figure out, they bought a bunch of land, and some people questioned what they were up to. And they didn't want to be stuck with a very expensive annual tax dollars going to support whatever the city was going to spend money on, like building a city hotel or a bigger golf course. And I think when the hospital made the commitment to, they wanted a newer hospital where they could expand and grow. And I think that was a big catalyst to the Gateway.
Totally. Probably saved that whole, thing for the government, the fact that they moved in there, so would be my feeling on it.
I won an award. I was probably more of the lead guy when it came to that story of all the series we did on the Gateway. And there was other stories we did. And I pitched out some ideas that other coworkers worked on, but for that series about the Gateway and the hospital's influence. But one story, I won an award. It was mainly based on one question.
Okay.
A decade ago, the Rutherford County Election Commission voted to get rid of Hooper Penuel, to fire him.
Right.
And there was some kind of mistake made where supposed to be early voting on a Saturday, and it was not held. And during a conversation at the meeting, Hooper was, he just sort of said, oops. But then the three Republicans wanting to get rid of him, they fired him.
Right.
And the next day, and then interviewed the chairman, and I asked the chairman, did you guys talk about this decision to fire Hooper Penuel, before the meeting? And he said, oh yeah, I called the other two members, and we all talked about it. We all agreed it was the right thing to do. And that's what he said. And I listened to him, and I took notes. And at the end of the interview, I said, you do realize how the open meetings work, right? And I don't think he did.
Wow.
And I had two experts in open meetings, and they both said that's a clear violation of the law. And then basically what it ended up is Mr. Penuel ended up getting a bigger severance package out of the deal.
That's right. That's right. Did he send you a Christmas card or anything?
Was that?
Did he send you a Christmas card?
No, I get along with him. We talk maybe once a year, twice a year, but he used to know a coworker of mine who did a year or so ago, Dan Whittle. They were good friends, and I quoted Hooper after we lost Dan Whittle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was going to say that the county attorney at that time, it was still Jim Cope, but he had to come in and kind of negotiate some sort of settlement to to that, that led to a sweeter. I mean, Hooper was going to retire anyways.
Right, right. He was on his way out.
He got a better severance package because of violating the Sunshine Law. And over time, all three Republicans, they were basically forced out. The local Republican Party came out with a statement. There's all kinds of things going on that people just didn't like the smell of. And the local Republican Party came out with a statement, we think you guys should resign. And then when our state lawmakers at the time, I think you're talking about like Senator Ketron then, Senator Tracy,
Right.
our lawmakers a decade ago, they recommended new people in those election commission seats, and that was that. It was
Right.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did win some kind of an award for that. So
That's awesome.
one question, a story based on one question. So.
Well, it can make all the difference, right? One question, one answer, one wrong, the wrong answer can make all the difference.
I agree. We need to figure out the right questions to ask, and someone that with wisdom actually, and other people have said this, always follow the money.
Sure. Yes. Which gets harder to do all the time. It seems that there's more and more money in politics. It makes it harder to follow the money, So. How has COVID-19
is about? I think politics is about, a lot of, not all of it, but a lot of it is about, trying to advocate for what's a good economic situation for each one of ourselves.
Sure. Yes.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's a great point. I think that a lot of times people forget that they expect our elected officials to always be for what is best for the people, and sometimes that's difficult to come up with, to try to figure out what's best.
Yeah.
How speaking of figuring out what's best for the people, how has COVID-19 affected your job?
I work from home. I'm at
You
home
work all the time, so
I work well at home. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I can imagine teaching kids. Ideally, you want them there with you.
Right.
But I work. I mean, reporters. We can work from home. We need the tools like a good computer, but I'm fine working at home. But I still communicate. I have the ability to communicate, using the laptop, computer, or phone, or to communicate with my boss and my coworkers. But working from home instead of working in the D&J, I have occasionally dropped by the D&J office, like maybe I'm at City Hall, and if the meeting ends and I'm still working on my story, I may go back into the newsroom to finish it, because it's real close to City Hall.
Sure.
So, but working from home, and I wear a mask when I leave. What I do go occasionally to meetings. Now, sometimes I cover meetings on video, like we're doing now.
Sure.
But I will go to City Hall or the county school board, and like most other people, I will wear a mask and try not to get too close to people. So.
Probably hard to interview people like in those meetings, because you normally, when I've seen you meetings, you walk up to people and get a statement from them or something after they voted a certain way, and so it makes it difficult on you, I would imagine, because you got to come within 6 feet.
I can understand people.
Yeah.
I'm in the school board meetings. A lot of those, like Bill Spurlock, and I can understand them.
That's great.
And now there's a couple of them that are more softer spoken. So wearing the mask might make it a little more difficult to, what is he saying? But a lot of them have strong voices, so I can tell what they're saying.
That's good. Yeah.
So.
What about, let's see. So if there's aspiring journalists out there that are tuning in, maybe I'm teaching some in my class, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's wanting to become a journalist?
Well, if you want to make lots of money, don't go into journalism.
Don't, right? Yeah, sure.
Now, if you're willing to take a vow of poverty, it's not a high-paying profession. Even people, I'm sure the New York Times probably pays pretty good, but I guarantee you a top lawyer in New York or a top surgeon in New York or a top, real estate professional or banker in New York makes a lot more than that New York Times reporter does.
Sure.
You don't go into that profession to make a lot of money. You go into it because you're willing to take a vow of poverty. Well, I knew that when I majored in it back in the 80s. I remember reading a magazine article that actually said that, journalism as a major, of all the white collar professions, you were, like teachers and social workers, you were closer to the bottom of the pay scale, and people that were electrical engineers, they could expect to make double. It's probably more than double now, but
Sure.
but it's you don't go into it to make a lot of money. Now, if you're like like you become like an anchor on a big network or a nationally syndicated columnist, then maybe you make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you don't. Vast majority of people that go into journalism, you don't go. You're not motivated to get rich. Maybe we'd be more pragmatic if we, pursue career to make a good. Hello.
Are you there? Now you're back.
There
Technical
you-
difficulties. I'm still connected.
We got frozen. That's all right.
I think we're back.
There you are. Now I'm getting a taste of what it's like to be a distance learner in your classroom.
That's
From home.
exactly right. What did he say? What'd you say? Raise the hand, so.
My son, who goes to UT Knoxville, and yeah, he does definitely prefer in-person learning.
Sure. Well, it's just there's something about having them. You can read the students, whether they're getting it or not, whether they're bored. It's very difficult to read a screen of people and, see whether you need to reteach something or not, So I think most teachers are just choosing to plow through it, and they double the homework, and so, which I don't think is the best. Personally, it wouldn't be for me as a student the best manner of learning, but So speaking of like you being, would you say that it's a calling to be a journalist?
Yeah.
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 So when did you feel that calling?
I guess I was stuck in junior college trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And initially I thought I like to read the sports sections a lot and watch sporting events. So I thought maybe I could be a sports writer.
That's
So I
awesome.
started out as a sports writer before I became a news reporter.
That's
And actually,
cool.
even when I was doing sports writing, sometimes I would look at the work of the news reporters covering the like issues with corruption or the governments maybe making mistakes that impacted people. Sometimes I kind of felt like, well, maybe they're doing the real work of journalists, and I'm just covering ball games. So,
And
although I think what goes on in sports also can be a mirror of everything else going on in the world. Because I mean, think about like covering Jackie Robinson,
sure.
and and how he was, putting an end, putting an end to segregation in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And all of the got treated, and how some people that were segregationists harassed him,
Sure.
or threw beanballs at him,
Yeah.
and just cursed him and said the N-word, and so sports writing can deal with serious issues, drug abuse, you name it. It can deal with all the same serious issues that the front pages of newspapers are dealing with too.
Of course. What do you feel like there's an issue that's out there in sports right now that we may look back on and it'd be like a much bigger issue than we realize?
You
right
know,
now?
I think
Yeah.
you would agree with me on this, but I'm really not a fan of these super wealthy billionaire people demanding that cities build them $1 billion worth of sports stadiums. I mean, on
Sure.
the one hand, I'm glad that Nashville can go yay rah Titans, and my two sons love the Titans. So I'm glad that, but I mean, Bud Adams was basically telling his hometown, build me a stadium or I'm going to take the Oilers away from you. And he did.
Right.
And that's his hometown. He lived there.
Yeah.
So I just wish billionaires built their own stadiums. I don't mind if a government builds a good road because it
Sure.
benefits several people.
Right.
Part of me just doesn't think, I just wish governments would stop saying, letting billionaires, make those kind of demands for tax dollars. And maybe I sound like a libertarian per se in that.
Right. I mean, I am the choir on this one, so.
Well, in 1988, the owner of the White Sox, I believe is Reinsdorf, he told government officials in Chicago and in Illinois and Cook County, I think Cook County too, he said, you build me a new stadium or the White Sox are moving to St. Petersburg. And it was like midnight. And I think the lawmakers in Illinois said, fine, here's our cut of the money so you'll stay. I think I admire the owner of the Cubs more, the Ricketts family.
Yeah.
And before that, the Tribune Company, and before that, the Wrigley family. But I don't think they've ever asked the government to pay for Wrigley Field or the renovations or the improvements. They may have asked for approval.
Sure.
Permit approval and plan approval, but I don't think they've ever demanded that the taxpayers pay for Wrigley Field. So I'm a Cub fan.
That's one more reason to be a Cubs fan. Every libertarian ought to get a Cubs hat.
There you go.
So let's see. I think we've covered everything. Here we go. What's on your radar right now? Is there anything out there that you're watching that you think that's going to be an issue bubbling up? I don't want to get any upcoming stories we should be watching for. Yeah,
but I'm not ready to tell you what they are. I could tell you a little bit. I know. When is Costco going to open?
Good question.
What kind of impact fee is Murfreesboro going to approve?
Another great question.
And same thing with Laverne. What kind of impact fee? Laverne has an impact fee. They're going to raise it, but how high are they going to raise it? So.
Right. Those are all good questions, and I'll be looking forward to finding out what the answers are. So, Scott, where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, I am on Twitter.
Okay.
I do shotgun my stories all over Facebook, whether people like it or not. Some people want it to be free, and they don't like the fact that the newspaper industry, including the owners of the Daily News Journal and the Daily News Journal and you, Gannett, are asking you, we don't want to give it away for free anymore. Can you please subscribe?
Right.
And
I've seen you catch some flack over that. I'll tell you, Scott, your writing, your work is the reason I subscribe to the DNJ.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate the work you do. It makes it easier, sleep better at night because I know that you're out there watching for me, and so
I'm working on it. I'm not perfect, but I'm still working on it and trying to learn and let people know what's going on. What impacts people? What do people care about?
Yeah.
They care about good schools for their kids and good roads. I wrote a lot of stories about roads.
Sure.
And the jobs. People care about having opportunities to be able to work and provide for themselves, their families, whether they own the business or just work for an employer.
That's right. Sure. Those things matter, and so good journalism matters, and it costs a little bit of money for us to keep it. So
yeah, let me pitch this to you.
Okay.
Being called fake news a lot, we're not PR.
Sure.
We're not a spokesman trying to say, oh, you are great, Your Majesty. You are perfect. That's not what our job is. You know, the paper that actually broke Hillary Clinton's email scandal was the New York Times.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, they broke that.
No, I agree. I got into it with a mutual friend of ours, State Rep Mike Sparks. He was saying that what Facebook is doing and what the news media is doing and stuff, like, he's a big fan of the term fake media, right? He said that he felt that they were censoring, and I was like, you got to be a government entity to censor, right? They're just choosing stories. They want clicks and people to, they're trying to make money, right? And so if your story is not interesting to people, they're not going to cover it. But that's not censorship, right? That's just choosing what you're going to cover. And I feel like you have plenty of competition, right? Like, I mean, so you compete with the Murfreesboro Post, I suppose, but you also compete with wherever else people get their news, right? Like, you have to provide a value for them to come to you, so.
Also, I want to put a pitch in for this. It's actually a Gannett paper, the Indianapolis newspaper. I think it's the Star Tribune, but they broke something a couple of years ago about a physician for a gymnast.
Okay.
And the medical professionals would ignore the stories of these female athletes.
That's right.
Michigan State officials ignored the stories from the female athletes there. And the governing officials for gymnastics. Are you there?
I am here. Keep going.
Hello. Oh, the governing body for gymnastics, they ignored those female athletes. Hello. Are you there?
I am here, Scott.
There you are.
Yeah.
Where are we?
You're good. You're rolling. I was letting you roll.
The Indianapolis paper decided that, we've got to start writing these stories about what these female athletes are saying. And they were being ignored by the governing officials. And all of a sudden, prosecutors started to read the paper and said, uh-oh, we got to do something about this.
Right.
So this beloved doctor who was being protected by governing bodies, he got brought down and sent to prison.
That's right.
There was a newspaper that took up that.
And that's why I subscribe to newspapers, right? Because they play a vital role in keeping us free.
I agree. So hopefully we'll always have independent reporters out there keeping us free. So
yes, I have heard, like, what's his name, Hank Greenfield, I think he was on a podcast I listened to where he was saying that the one problem about these newsrooms getting smaller is that as a journalist, you're less likely to take risk on a story. And so you might keep your head down more and things like that. You might, and so he thinks that a robust news agency, like lots of places for people to get stories out, is important for us to.
I agree.
And so, yeah.
I think having the Murfreesboro Post or WGNS or whoever the TV stations in Nashville that come to cover issues, that's better. That competition makes me work harder. I get along with all those other reporters, but I have to work harder knowing they'll beat me on something.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I support competition.
Yeah, it's good. Well, Scott, thank you so much for doing this for me, sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. And if I can ever be of service to you, please let me know.
Yeah, do well with those kids at Holloway. I want to see you help them succeed and help those folks, whatever it is, buy or sell the property they're trying to buy and sell. So
thanks, Scott. I will. Keep in touch, man.
I hope you and your wife, and how many kids you got? 1 or 2?
We have 2 together. So we have mine, hers, and ours, so 7 altogether.
Oh, that's more than the Brady bunch.
It is just by 1, I think, right?
All right.
We're the family.
I hope you guys
it's cool.
Hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving.
Thanks. You too. See you soon.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, man. Bye. Hey guys, that was Scott Broden of the DNJ who took some time to speak with me, and I really appreciate that, Scott. Thank you. I think we touched on some really important issues. We were talking about some of the issues going forward, how Murfreesboro and Laverne and probably Smyrna as well will be changing their impact fees, and how that will affect the growth of the cities. There are some people who believe that raising those impact fees would be going to be detrimental to our growth. And so there's worry about, raising those. And if you raise them too fast, and how that, will that slow things down around here? There are some people who are hoping that it will indeed slow things down. And so they're looking forward to some of those impact fees being put in place. Let's see. The other things that he talked about I thought were interesting was touching upon the fake news. I do think that it's important that we support local media. And that includes podcasters like myself and other people, that are trying to help cover what's going on locally. I mean, the size of government has grown a lot through the years, and yet our media has shrunk. And so those watching our government, there are less eyeballs watching them now. And so it's very important that we all help each other out and work through those things. So I've got a new segment that I'm wanting to add. I touched on it last week. I talked about what it means to be a libertarian. And so I've got a little jingle here I'm going to play for you guys. Try this out. Maybe.
You mean government doesn't have to get involved?
No way, man!
It's time for Ask the Libertarian.
So, as the libertarian of the show, today I want to talk just another thing that Scott and I were talking about, were how local governments will fund billionaires' hobbies, such as bringing the Titans to Nashville. And normally I'm in the minority on this until the Titans start losing a bunch, and then people are like, "Yeah, why did we give them all that money for that stadium?" But I'm against government handouts for billionaires. More so for I'm more against government handouts to billionaires than I am for government handouts to people that are poor, because I don't feel like it's a good use of tax dollars. I do believe that billionaires would build these large stadiums, things of that nature, bring Costco to town because we have residents who are here and they want to spend their money. Or that we have, I think another pro team could have started there in Nashville, could have paid their own away and would have been just fine. There's not a need. There just isn't a need for local governments to spend that kind of money to try to bring people in. I just listened to a podcast. One of the podcasts I listened to is called Planet Money, and they did a show on a small town in Georgia that they actually did a local play called Swamp Gravy was the name of the play. But they did this play, and it helped turn around the town and start getting the economy going in the right direction. That's something that any small town could do. There are things that people can come together when we are united in a goal. We don't need government to unite us in a goal. We just need a vision. And so in this, and I encourage you to look it up. I'll post a link to it. The Swamp Gravy episode had a little lady, she's 70 years old, and she had this vision that if we could get the arts going in our small town, that it would lead to economic revival of the town. And she was right, and it worked. And so, when people think outside the box and they cast a vision, then people follow. Things can happen, and it doesn't take government to do that. And so that's this Ask a Libertarian segment. If you have a question about how libertarians would handle an issue, please email the show. You can email me at realestate@mt615.com. Soon we'll get an actual email for the show, but for now, just use my my work one, realestate@mt615.com, and ask any question. I will discuss it on the show, and also I'm looking forward to having other libertarians on the show as well, and so we'll let them answer the question in the future. So again, realestate@mt615.com. Send me the question. Ask a libertarian a question, any question. You can send it. We'll answer it. And so that concludes the show for this week. Hope you guys are having a happy Thanksgiving. Hope you've eaten a lot of cakes and pies and goodies. Hope you're staying safe. There is a pandemic going on out there, but I do believe that family is important. Spending time with those that you love is important. So make sure you spend time with those that you love and you let them know that you're thankful for them. I am thankful for you guys. Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, Periscope. Thank you, YouTube, and all the other places that this is on. You can listen to the podcast in its completion on Spotify and iTunes and Stitcher and wherever else you can get your podcast. You can find me there. There's a lot of middle grounds out there nowadays. I started this show many years ago, but just now starting to get it running on a regular basis. So sometimes you got to add Answer Fancher into that search when you go for it. But anyway, I'll soon have a website up that'll help you direct to the podcast. If you would, please like and share the show. That would be great. And hopefully I'll see you guys again next Saturday. And let's see.
You've been listening to the Middle Ground Podcast, hosted by Answer Fancher. Finally, a political podcast that isn't left or right. It's right down the middle. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and tell a friend or two. That would help also. Coming to you from Middle Tennessee with a political view right down the middle. You've been listening to the Middle Ground Podcast. See you soon.